Let's talk about some draft sleepers on today's show. Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here, going over 5 players that are not on Mel Kiper's big board. They're not household names. They're not guys projected to go in the first or probably even the second round. But the Browns don't have a first-round pick, which means they've got to be precise. They've got to be accurate, and they simply cannot miss, really. So with that being said, let's at least refresh everyone's memories about what picks the Browns have in 2024. They have a second, a third, 2 fifths, 2 sixths, and a 7th. So 7 picks altogether, and some of them are pretty good quality picks, right? 2 picks in the first 2 days of the draft, and then 2 fifths and a 2 sixths you can use to trade up potentially if you wanted to. Now, Andrew Berry is no stranger to making his bread and butter in day 2 and day 3 of the draft. I mean, you could argue his best draft picks haven't even been when he had a first or a second round pick to use, right? Dawand Jones, Martin Emerson, a 4th and a 3rd rounder, JOK, a 2nd rounder, along with Grant Delpit, and then he found DPJ in round 6. So Andrew Berry is no stranger to finding some of the hidden gems in the NFL draft. Now, I would say these are 5 of his best picks he has made, if not the best 5 picks he has made. So who is your favorite draft pick of Andrew Berry so far? You can make some good arguments across the board. I loved what I've seen out of Grant Delpit and JOK. They're second-round picks. You should hit on your second rounders. Meanwhile, Dawand Jones, a 4th rounder, might be the best value of all of them. And then Martin Emerson in round 3 was just such an incredible pick despite not having a first or a second-round pick in that year's draft. So let me know down below in the comment section who your favorite pick of AB has been so far. Now, let's not wait any longer. Let's get into our 5 draft sleepers, starting with the Louisville Cardinals running back, Isaac Guerendo. So this is an interesting cat because he's 6'1", 225 pounds, which sounds like a little bit of a bowling ball for an NFL running back, but the guy runs like a bat out of hell. He has top-end speed, and one of the best traits, I don't think traits is the best word, but one of the best elements of the draft profile for Guerendo is he does not have a lot of tread on his tires. He started his career off at Wisconsin. He was a backup for 4 years there. Then he transfers to Louisville for a 5th and final season. And with the Cardinals, he emerged on the scene. 132 carries, so a bit of a mixed backfield. 810 yards, average 6.1 yards a carry. Good for 11 touchdowns. So we're looking at a player that doesn't have a lot of wear and tear, doesn't have a lot of bruises, doesn't have a long medical rap sheet, doesn't have a torn ACL like some of the other best running backs coming into this draft. And despite all that, he averaged 6.1 yards a carry, and no one's talking about him. I don't get what people are missing here. Yes, I understand there's not a ton of tape on this guy. There's just 1 year to look at, and maybe that's going to be something that bites a team in the derriere in a few years when they look back and go, why did we draft a guy that only had 132 carries and his highest usage of a season? But it also could be a spot where the Browns benefit from there not being a lot of chatter, not being a ton of tape on this player. But despite that, when he was on the field with the Cardinals this year, he averaged 6.1 yards a carry. He's a home run threat. He's got elite top-end speed. He's got the ability to take what could be a 10 to 15-yard run and then just get loose and separate and break free and take it all the way. He is a home run running back. Now, when you look at the Browns' running back depth chart here, we are all, fingers crossed, expecting Nick Chubb to return in 2024. I believe he will return in 2024, but I'm not confident that he'll be ready for week 1, week 2, or maybe even week 3, and it could go on from that point. And with that being said, I'm definitely not confident in Jerome Ford being a bell cow back for the first third quarter of the season whenever Nick Chubb is healthy enough to return. So the Browns should definitely look to add to their running back room. Moving on to our next sleeper, let's go with Roman Wilson, the wide receiver out of Michigan. Now, I know this is the team up north, but don't click out of the video. Roman Wilson, the 6', 193-pound wideout for the Wolverines last year, was one of the best athletes in college football. He made Bruce Feldman's Freaks list. He puts out a list of the best athletes and just overall athletic freaks going into each season, and Roman Wilson found himself on it due to his 4.37 40-yard time, unofficial, of course. We'll wait for the combine next week in 2023. Now, he's a vertical threat. He's a home run type of player similar to Guerendo, and he shined in the Senior Bowl. He was in an offense that I'm sure everyone watching knows was a run-first offense. So Roman Wilson, there's not a whole lot of tape out there. 48 receptions last season, 789 yards, 12 touchdowns, but the guy was the star of the Senior Bowl. He was the number one wide receiver people were talking about coming out of that week stretch. So Roman Wilson in a normal NFL offense and not a wing T offense that the Michigan Wolverines were basically running could benefit a whole lot, and he could be an ultimate sleeper. I also look at Roman Wilson as a horse trait player. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I mentioned it before on the show, but Andrew Berry in a press conference last year opened up about how the Browns sort of look for their draft targets. And he talked about how they look for horse trait players. And I loved this story and this analogy that he gave because he talked about how there are ducks out there and ducks can swim okay. They can waddle, but they don't really run fast. And they can fly, but not more than a foot off the ground. But a horse can't fly. A horse can't swim, but man, can it run. And so they are looking for players that are outliers in a certain element of their game. And Roman Wilson is a horse trait player because he's got speed. He's got that vertical presence that the Browns are looking for in their wide receiver room, right? Amari Cooper is a do-it-all receiver. Elijah Moore hopefully gets moved out of this scat back type of role, almost like a Demetric Felton on steroids that they had him on to begin the season. Cedric Tillman and David Bell still have some learning and some growing to do as they are early on in their career. But I fully expect the Browns to add a wide receiver. And if they don't go for one with their second round pick, I don't think Roman Wilson will even be one of the first 8 wide receivers taken. So Cleveland could find him in round number 3, similar to how they found Cedric Tillman and David Bell the last few drafts. We have more sleepers to get to in just a moment, but I was looking at the YouTube analytics, and I know that the Browns don't have a bunch of eye-popping storylines right now. No head coaching search, no quarterback search. Those tend to lead in the offseason. But I do want to at least beat our sub record from February of 2023, which was 151 subscribers, and we're at 145 right now. So can we get 7 of you watching at the moment to go ahead and click that subscriber button, please? All right, let's move on to our third draft sleeper, which is Jonah Elliss, the outside linebacker out of Utah. Now, if the name sounds familiar, he's got a long lineage of family members playing in the NFL. His dad played in the NFL. His brother, Caden Elliss, is currently a linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. His brother's on, I think, the Giants practice squad. But the 6'2", 246 outside linebacker for the Utes last year was extremely effective. He finished second in sacks in the Pac-12 behind UCLA's Laiatu Latu, who is expected to go in the first round of this year's draft. And what I love most about Jonah Elliss is he's got a deep pass rush rotation or move arsenal. Very often we see guys go from college to the pros, and they just know 1 or 2 moves. And they take advantage of that because they're going up against okay college football tackles. But once they get to the NFL, well, they discover, oh, offensive linemen in the NFL know how to deal with this one move I have. Well, I've got nothing else in my arsenal. So now I'm just a fish out of water. Jonah Elliss, he's got a deep rotation of moves, which always keeps offensive linemen guessing. Last season for Utah, 37 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Now, he's not the bendiest edge rusher. In fact, I don't even think he's got the size, necessarily the athleticism, to be a true edge rusher in the NFL, which is why I could see him being moved to an inside linebacker. Now, the Browns don't really have this type of backer on their team at the moment. I mean, when you look at the Browns' 3 linebackers last year, Anthony Walker was not a pass-rushing linebacker. JOK was definitely not afraid to get into the backfield and make some plays with his speed, but he didn't have that brute strength that Jonah Elliss does. And then Taki was kind of somewhere in between Walker and JOK. So this would be bringing in a new style of linebacker that I don't think he would play on the defensive end. I think he's too small for that, but I think they might move him to an inside linebacker position. and then use him in blitz packages to get after the quarterback. Now, we have more draft sleepers to talk about in just a moment, so don't go anywhere. But first, I want to fill you guys in on our sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. If you don't know how to play, let me tell you how it works. You pick 2 to 6 players, and then you choose more or less on their projected stats. And it's really as easy as that. Now, there is no more football to watch. However, we do have baseball coming up right around the corner. So if you want to make some stat projections on Prize Picks with me, these are the ones I'm rolling with here. And what I love the most about this is you can do season-long stat projections, which means we all know that baseball can have some dog days during the summer. But with a season-long stat projection, you've got something to keep you engaged and entertained throughout the entire summer. So all you do, like I said, is choose more or less on their stat projections, and depending on how many players you select, you could earn up to 15 times your entry. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. So shout out to Prize Picks for supporting the Cleveland Browns report. Fourth draft sleeper on the docket. We're going to go with Clemson's defensive tackle, Tyler Davis. No secret the Browns are likely in the market to add to the interior defensive line. And if they don't want to go early in the draft, since that hasn't really been Andrew Berry's specialty in round 2, they could find Tyler Davis maybe in round 4 or round 5. Now, he is 6'2", 299 pounds. If I had to come up with a pro for Tyler Davis, he is difficult to displace one-on-one, and he's also got great quickness off the snap. And when you look at the size, it kind of checks out for the style of defensive tackle Andrew Berry has drafted. He's got Dalvin Tomlinson to be that more of a one-technique nose tackles type of defensive tackle to just be a tree stump in the middle of the defensive line. But if he's looking to replace maybe like a Jordan Elliott that can have some pass rushing upside, Tyler Davis is your man. Now, the con is he missed a lot of time from 2020 to 2022. He was a 5-year player for the Tigers, and he was one of their best players this past season. However, because of that injury stretch, there's some question marks around him, and that's why he's going to fall a little bit in the draft, which could benefit the Browns because they might look at, oh, everyone's going to pass on him because he missed some time in 2021. Fine, you're lost. We'll take advantage of Tyler Davis being available in round 4, where if he was healthy, he probably would have entered last year's draft, and he probably would have gone earlier than round 4 or round number 5. And like I said, the Browns do have some replacements to make on their defensive line. Jordan Elliott, Shelby Harris, and Maurice Hurst, 3 members of that primary 4-man defensive tackle rotation, all set to hit free agency. I could see the Browns bringing back one of those guys and then putting Siaki Ika, now the second-year man out of Baylor, into a larger role. But we still have one vacancy in a 4-man defensive tackle rotation, and Tyler Davis, a rookie, could step into that spot. Moving on to our 5th and final draft sleeper, let's go with the Michigan offensive guard, Zak Zinter. Now, I understand these are now 2 Wolverines on the list, but I'm sure everyone that watched the big game will understand why we're talking about Zak Zinter. He is 6'6", 322 pounds, longtime starter for Harbaugh at Michigan, 42 games over his 4-year career. He was the player that suffered that season-ending broken leg injury against the Buckeyes, and I think because of that, he's going to slide in the draft, and similar to Tyler Davis, this could be a spot where the Browns go, listen, just because of an injury last year, we're not going to write off your NFL career. We saw just how effective, and most importantly, how freaking violent Zak Zinter was for the Wolverines. If you're looking for a man to just run people over and take pride in doing it, and then want to get up and do it all again the next play and the next play and the next play, this is your guy. Now, when you look at the Browns' offensive line, they don't have a glaring need for a guard, right? Petonio and Teller, they're going to be here for 2024. However, when you look at their depth, they don't have an obvious next man up for the interior offensive line. Michael Dunn was that guy for the Browns this past season when Bitonio went down. However, Dunn's going to be a free agent, so if the Browns kind of want to reset at their sixth man on the interior offensive line, they could do that in the draft. And I also know that teams, they're not just drafting for this year's season, 2024. They're always thinking one step ahead. And when we look at the Browns' 2025 cap hits here for Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, I mean, these are two of the best offensive linemen in the game, and they're going to be paid like so. Wyatt Teller's got a near $22 million cap hit for 2025. Again, we're talking next season. Joel Bitonio, near $23 million. So with Bitonio and Teller both getting up there in age a little bit, Bitonio coming off a back injury this season, which is not great for offensive linemen at this stage of their career, I think there is a chance the Browns could move on from one of these two guys before 2025 season kicks off. And so maybe the Browns decide, instead of drafting a rookie in the 2025 draft to step in and be a week one starter, maybe we draft a replacement for one of these two guys this year, let them learn, let them practice on our team for a whole season, and then in their second year in the league, they'll be much more acclimated to the NFL game speed, and they could step into a starting role in 2025 if the Browns end up moving on from one of these two players, either to save some money or they feel like their best days are behind them. All right, who is your draft sleeper, though? Everyone's got one. Don't be afraid. Scroll on down and let me know in the comment section who the player is that no one is talking about, but you've got your eye on. To wrap up the show, and before I make my way to the airport to go to a bachelor party, Mr. Cullen, what card do you want to go with? This is going to be good.
All right. I love Zak Zinter.
Okay.
He was the fifth person on your list.
Yeah, he was.
Offensive linemen are in groups of 5.
That's true.
He may even go in round 5.
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to go 5, and I think he's a diamond.
Yeah, diamond in the rough. That makes total sense.
5 diamonds.
I'm going to go with the Jack of Hearts for no reason. This one's come up a lot, and we should start picking this number more. 4 of Hearts. The number 4 is having a major run. We've had like 5 4s, I feel like, in the last 2 weeks or something. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to sign off and catch up with you guys later.